Okay, we're live. Welcome back, folks, to another town hall. And we'll go ahead and get started, even though we might have one or two more joining. I think John at least will be coming back here soon, but we'll go ahead and get going here. I want to start with welcoming a new participant, Jesse Robinson. Thanks for joining us, Jesse. You want to please introduce yourself for us? Tell us a little bit about your background and how you found your way to us, and any particular interests you have and how you might be looking to get involved, or how you might be able to help us out.
Sure, yeah. So as you said, my name is Jesse Robinson. I'm the director of the Glimcher Tech and Design Hub at Shadyside Academy, which is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Shadyside's a K through 12 school, but I focus mainly on the senior school campus. The Glimcher Tech and Design Hub is an 8,000 square foot makerspace, filled with the traditional makerspace things. I'm actually wrapping up my dissertation at Duquesne University talking about makerspaces specifically. My initial interest in the e-NABLE project is this year. I run 3 classes in my makerspace, but my favorite class is called Community Connections in Tech and Design, and the theme changes every year. And this year, our focus is on assistive technology. So we partnered with e-NABLE, and my students are starting their Phoenix version 3 hands. And we've also partnered with the Open Wheelchair Project, where we'll be soon starting our open wheelchair PVC construction. And so,
very cool.
Yeah, and we have one student who's actually going to be presenting to my class pretty soon. She volunteers at a veterinarian, and we're going to be looking at some possible prosthetics for animals there as well.
Excellent. Okay, I just want to recap a little bit of that, since John just was able to join us, because I want to make sure he's aware of this. So John, Jesse joins us as you're a teacher at what school?
Yeah, I'm a director of the Glimcher Tech and Design Hub at Shadyside Academy, which is in Pittsburgh.
And he has an 8,000 square foot maker space. And Jesse, you said you're wrapping up your dissertation.
Wrapping up my dissertation at Duquesne University. I think it's due in March.
And that's on, what was it again?
So it's an instructional technology. It's in instructional technology, but my focus is on makerspaces, more so kind of the cart before the horse, meaning I think 98% of makerspaces are probably made wrong or incorrectly, in the fact that we fill them with multi-million dollars worth of equipment and don't really put much thought in pedagogy and scaffolding first. And that seems to be true in independent schools, at least, where I have all the 3D printers and all the laser cutters and all the vinyl cutters, and following the kind of a cookie cutter model of most maker spaces. And then we think, okay, now what? After we have all the equipment. So that's kind of the focus on the dissertation.
And then you said that of the 3 classes that you do, the one that you had in mind for the e-NABLE project was, what was it called again?
It's called Community Connections in Tech and Design, and that changes every year. So the first year we created a children's show where the students learn puppetry, animatronics, green screen techniques, and animation. The second year we did sustainability. So the kids learned hydroponics. We did the IKEA Grow Room, which is an open source project. I actually have to spray for fungus gnats later today, because that is what my makerspace is currently filled with. And then this year the focus is on assistive technology. So we're partnering with e-NABLE, creating our first arms or hands, and then we've also partnered with the Open Wheelchair Organization Foundation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So like I said, I'm really glad you could join us. For the benefit of Jesse, let's maybe go around and do a quick round of introductions for the rest of us. I'll start. So I think Jesse already knows me. I'm Jeremy Simon, longtime member of the e-NABLE team, one of the co-founders with John here, and really help wherever I can behind the scenes. I do a lot of infrastructure stuff. I sort of share a lot of my business's infrastructure to help support e-NABLE, and do a lot kind of behind the scenes to help where I can. And let me hand it over to John next.
So hi, nice to meet you. I love what you're working on, Jesse.
Thank you.
Co-founder of e-NABLE, but currently also very much involved in eco-restoration as a way of addressing climate issues. I was not familiar with the IKEA grow room, but I'm looking at it now. So you have done a grow room, but it was a one-year project?
I'm sorry, we did a what?
You mentioned the IKEA grow room, and you've done it in your makerspace, yes?
Yes, it's sitting off to my left over there outside my fishbowl. Yes.
So it's an ongoing thing. Well, that'll be something to talk about as well. Just to connect the dots, about a year and a half ago, I decided that this little e-NABLE experiment had proven that it has legs and it has lasted, and it has been addressing a niche problem. There's a non-niche problem that threatens all of us right now. And so I'm sort of exploring the possibility that some of what we learned at e-NABLE could be applied to the climate problem. So I'm pulling together a global network of volunteers who are in that space to see what we can do. And that's my history in a nutshell.
All right, let's go over to Ward next. If you're able to talk, and Ward's at the office.
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Okay.
Ward Holloway, mechanical engineer. I've been engineering for a long time. I'm not going to tell you how long. I'm licensed. I got my professional engineering license in the state of Connecticut, and I'm here for any support anybody needs, I guess, engineering wise.
I'm originally from Connecticut, so it's nice to see.
I'm in Massachusetts now.
Oh, okay. I won't hold that against you.
No, that's all right.
Sarah, how about you next?
I'm Sarah Gelbard. I'm a journalist with a background in public health and medical research, and I am taking over for Ben Rubin as e-NABLE's current media coordination fellow. So.
All right, and last but not least, Adam. You able to talk, Adam? You're muted.
Hey, sorry, I posted something in the comments. I've got
Oh, I just saw that. I'm so
laryngitis.
sorry. You got
okay.
laryngitis.
Maybe you could give me a quick intro.
If you don't mind, I'll do my best. Yeah, Adam has been invaluable recently in helping us to kind of move forward a number of important projects. He's got a background in sort of I'm going to get this wrong, I'm sure, but process engineering as well as healthcare. Help me out if I got that wrong in the chat. But I know he has this really interesting combined background in the healthcare space combined with process engineering, and so he's been helping us to kind of get our act together and is helping to work on a number of important projects like an Afghanistan initiative, trying to figure out how to get devices into those that need them. Physical therapy with an emphasis in amputee rehabilitation. Thank you, Adam. That's much better than the way I described it. So he has a very relevant background, but also is now working on sort of process engineering. And so he can help us fix some of our broken processes, and really been trying to get some new leadership and organizational structure in place, trying to find people like yourself that are willing to kind of step up and help us kind of move certain initiatives forward, kind of take ownership of certain areas of responsibility and e-NABLE. It's been a struggle because everyone has different schedules. Everyone's got their day jobs. You know, it's really hard to coordinate things in an environment like this, but Adam has been doing his best to help us try to move things forward.
And has become one of our emergent leaders.
Absolutely. Yeah. So he's been a regular participant in these meetings and helping us trying to find others that we can bring into the fold. So we're really glad you're here, Jesse. There's lots to be done, and we need help not only getting things done, but figuring out, are these the right things to get done? And are there things we haven't thought about? And just how can we help to best support this community and facilitate its continued growth? You know, e-NABLE is a community that has always done its own thing. It grows by itself very organically, and it succeeds, you know, without help from us. But you know, that's not to say that there aren't every now and then little, you know, hurdles that we can help, you know, clear, or, you know, areas that we can help to, you know, smooth the way for. So we're just trying to
And-
kind of help. Yeah, go ahead, John.
And I would add that when it does proceed on its own, or it does make advances, when someone says, here's a particular thing I want to do, and then does it, often they can get support around what they're doing. But that's how it happens. So,
Yeah.
you know, Jesse, let that be a
Yeah, the most
cautionary note.
The most
Because there's
important thing to
a big
understand.
opportunity for the kind of thing you're doing to become a part of the new e-NABLE, a topic which will be discussed at our forthcoming chapters leaders meeting, which
On
is
Monday.
when, Sarah?
Monday. Yep. So we'll review those upcoming events. But yeah, the most important thing to understand about us, Jesse, is that nobody's in charge here. It's truly a volunteer community, and everybody is an equal participant here to whatever extent they want to be. And so we call it a do-ocracy. If you see something that needs to be done, you just kind of do it. And, you know, nobody's going to stand in your way. You don't need permission from anyone. We're all just kind of doing our best to help each other out here. So with that, let me bring my notes back and we will proceed. I was just looking at that garden. Very cool. All right, so on we go. We're going to review our action items first here. First one was for me to create an, I think this was from last time. I forgot to cross it off, but yeah, we did create a new badge for that Adapt 3D Splints for Ukraine project. Stack of them going here for anyone curious what
Good for
those
you,
look like.
Jeremy.
Yeah, I'll get a shipment off before long, but it's a good way to keep your idle printers happy. They're easy to print and you can just kind of run them one right after the other. So next one is for Rick to begin sending chapter audit emails, but actually here, let me move this one up. The first one was for me and Rick to meet to review the process for sending out those emails following up for the chapter audit. And we had something come up and we were not able to meet. We actually had a meeting on the schedule, but had to postpone it because something came up. So Rick and I are going to have to regroup this week and get that done. And then he will begin sending out those follow-up emails to individual chapter leaders. It's just, like I said before, it's going to be a process that probably takes several months to complete. And we'll just gradually fill in responses as we can get them. And then once we're done, you know, we'll kind of see what we're left with and maybe retire some of the ones that we were never able to reach. Jeremy and John, draft Lumio discussion thread about new proposed voting guidelines, and that has been done. And just this morning, I posted the discussion thread that John and I had drafted. So it is now up on Lumio as a discussion thread. So I would encourage all of you to read that. I invited everyone that is a current member of the Lumio platform. So everyone should have notifications in their inbox about this, but please take a look at that and comment and share your thoughts. In about a week, this will turn into a proposal, which means there will be voting on it. And that voting will run for 10 days per our suggestion here. And then we will see how the voting goes. Now, here's an interesting question. Do we calculate the votes based on our new proposed method or the old method?
I'm hoping it doesn't come to
Hopefully
that.
it won't matter. Yeah, it should be a pretty unanimous approval, I think, on this.
We could always have a vote on that question.
Yeah, right. Anyway, the discussion thread is going. I see here that it says 184 were notified and 11 have seen it so far. So it's off and running. So we'll see. We'll revisit that next week and see what kind of, hopefully we'll have some comments on that and some discussion going that we can review.
We should post into the hub also, of course, to let people know about
Oh,
it.
that's a good point. Can I ask one of you to do that? Who has time, John or Sarah, who'd like to do that? I see John smiling. Sarah, can you help us with that?
Sure.
So we just want to post in the hub to let people know that there's a new discussion happening in the Lumio platform. And here's the link for you in chat that you can share. And if you just kind of point them to that, we just want to let people know that it's there and ask them to please review some changes that we're proposing to the voting process and share their comments. Thank you. Next up is one for Sarah. Get a progress update from Ian and or Nush. Any updates from them on what Nush has been working on?
No, we're working on scheduling a call for next week.
Okay, sounds good. Jesse, just so that you know, Ian is a professor with Brandeis University, and he has been helping us to kind of coordinate our internship program. And our current intern is a student named Nush, who happens to be, I think, a student at his university. But there was a broader push using I don't know if you're familiar with it, the Handshake platform, which I guess is for finding interns, across the whole network of schools. And so Ian was kind of helping us to coordinate and manage those interns. Currently, I think we just have one active, and Nish is working on kind of helping us to trying to revamp our device catalog and how we're presenting that. And there's discussion of trying to tie it in with the NIH 3D Print Exchange. The National Institute of Health has a site for 3D printable devices, and we already have a section there. And we were looking at maybe revamping that and breaking it into categories and making that kind of our master repository instead of what we currently have. So there's work supposedly being done there that we wanted to just get an update on. So that's what that's about. And then the next one is Adam, and this is just kind of this has been here a long time. This was the work to try to coordinate this new leadership team, which has unfortunately proven to be very difficult. What we really need are people like yourself, Jesse, people like Adam, people like Sarah, who kind of come forward and say, I have some time available, I'd like to help. Unfortunately, these are very hard people to find. John, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, that's everything you've just said is true. And yet, here we are talking about it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think finding a meeting time for all of our emergent leaders has been difficult. But Jeremy, I'm going to raise the possibility. Adam, I'm going to invite you to consider not just being a participant in these meetings, but becoming more of a leadership at these meetings. It may be that this is the opportunity for those who are together to begin taking a leadership role. And I just suspect that Jeremy and I have got a certain momentum here, which at this point may be discouraging new direction. So I'm just opening it up to suggest that since convening a whole new cohort hasn't worked, but in fact, we've gotten Rick and Adam on board, encourage them to oust the old timers at their convenience.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of these weekly meetings I've hosted, and I'll just keep doing it until somebody, kicks me aside. So happy to have somebody take over or split it into portions. I think that's a good idea. But I think it's actually very encouraging just what's happening here organically. Like I said, I mean, here we are. It's, we got Adam, we got Jesse here. Jesse, just out of curiosity, how is this day and time for you, generally speaking? I know you probably have a busy schedule. Is this something you'd be able to join sometimes?
Oh, definitely sometimes. So the only conundrum is we're on a rotating schedule. So, our classes kind of, we're on an 8-day cycles, and it's kind of hit or miss.
Understood. Well, periodic participation is more than welcome.
Yeah, and this is one of my busier semesters.
Okay.
But at maximum I teach 2 classes a day, so I'm pretty flexible.
Terrific. Just a side note, I'd love to have a side conversation with you, Jesse. I'm really interested in what you do. Obviously, I have interest from my business, 3D Universe, where we connected through, but also I have partners with an organization called BitSpace that I think there might be a lot of synergy there, and I don't know exactly how, but a lot of what they do is designing custom maker spaces. And I just what you were saying before about it really sounded similar to their philosophy and approach. So it might be an interesting introduction if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to keep my dance card filled. So
yeah, right. Okay, let's see. Did we cover all the action items? I think we did. So we'll move on. I don't have any kind of special presentations lined up right now. We always open these town hall meetings to special presentations from anyone in the community, Jesse. So if somebody has an interesting project that they've been working on, or has something else that they want to share, they're always welcome to come and take time in these meetings and use it as a way of presenting to the community, since these are live streamed and recorded. But I don't have any on the schedule right now. So we're always just kind of looking for, interesting things going on, chapters that have cool projects going on, things like that. And we'll try to get those onto the schedule here. Here's a look at our weekly metrics. We always just kind of spend a moment on these because they don't really change that much. We'll get used to seeing pretty similar numbers here. So just to go through this real quickly, the top section is the e-NABLE hub. That's kind of where we coordinate and collaborate and connect with each other. We've got over 3,000 active members in there right now. We had 19 new folks come in this week. Over 15,000 posts in our main forum, but that includes all the messages that were ported in from our previous platforms. So that's actually almost a decade worth of history there that represents. 5 posts this week, 4 topics that were covered by those 4 posts. Each post gets flagged with topics that it has in it. And 15 likes, just to indicate how much engagement we have. People are spending an average of just under 3 minutes on the hub in the session. e-NABLE Web Central is a matching platform that we've run for a number of years now, but I will say its life is likely coming to an end. We are really trying to find the right alternative because we no longer have the development support that we need to maintain a platform like this. And so we are really working to find a good alternative, and we're testing one that we have up now. We'll talk more about that later. We think we have somewhere around 200 chapters, but we're in the midst of a chapter audit, so that number will change as we figure out how many really are still active. Our help desk saw 14 inquiries that were e-NABLE related this week, 10 badge requests, and 1 e-NABLE Web Central related inquiry for a total of 25 tickets. All of those are being handled by Rick Williams, who is usually at these meetings. He's probably tied up this week, but he'll be back next week, I'm sure. So he handles all these tickets through the help desk for us now, which has really been a huge help. And our e-NABLE fund, which is the collective fund that we use to fund projects through this Lumio voting platform that we've alluded to, stands at about 25K, but we have another 20K commitment coming in on an annual commitment that we have from the Dora Foundation. So that'll bring us back up to the 45K range around the new year. And that puts us in pretty good shape for at least another year at the rate that we've been using it. Okay, so on we go. We usually won't spend that much time on the stats. I just wanted to just kind of introduce that to Jesse here. Posts of note from the week. So there were, a few here. Thank you for the help on this, Sarah. The first one here is Sina Joseph, Guidance for Printing Fingers. Let's take a look at this one. I didn't see this one. Electronics engineer student from India, looking to build a cheap, affordable prosthetic arm, which will be controlled using EMG. Looking for a good 3D print file for printing, which I can control every finger independently. We need Rick here to answer this question. I know Rick has been working on independent finger control with separate actuators. John, do you know anybody else that's been doing that kind of thing? Independent finger control?
I think Eric Bubar's has a group. Eric Bubar may have a group that's worked on this kind of thing. And Adam Armfield comes to mind, but I don't really know. Having said that, I meant to write a note to Sina, pointing out that it's a very difficult task. It's the obvious thing if you're looking at technology and commercial bionic prosthetics. But the fact is that even the commercial bionic prosthetics are probably less functional than body-powered prosthetics. And
Well, let's
EMG
remember,
in particular is a very glitchy technology.
That's what I was going to say. I think there's a middle ground here, right? Because I think EMG is the problem potentially, but there are approaches to powered prosthetics that don't rely on EMG. that could be considered here. You know, there are there's the kind of the button or switch approach where you push a button with your other hand or flip a switch to actuate it. There's there's people using what is it called, a capacitive sensor? What is the one that does pressure on the arm that senses pressure? I can't think of what it's called, but essentially a physical pressure sensor, such that when you are stressing your muscles, it causes a tightening that actuates the sensor rather than relying on EMG, which is more finicky. So there are alternatives. And again, I think Rick can explain a lot more than I can. Jesse, I saw you run and get some. Is this something you've worked on?
This is actually something one of my students worked on. So each finger is actually controlled by a separate servo. It's based off of a Ubionic model.
Oh, yeah. We looked at that one. Okay.
Yeah, so currently the way this is working is there's a glove that the student uses on the fingers, and that actually closes all the servos.
And so what do you have in there? Like, what are you using for actuators?
The servos themselves are just plain old SG90 mini servos.
You're using servos, okay.
Yeah, servos, and then it's run by an Arduino Nano. Now that can be used, that can be probably partnered with just switches, or just as you said, those kind of they have those capacitive fabric that can actually can be touched, and there's also those flex switches also. So depending on how the muscle moves, it can actually be used to kind of clench the fist specifically. But
fantastic.
She's just getting started with it, so I don't have that much to. I mean, I couldn't power it on right now, so
no, thanks for showing that. So you know the usual routine, Sarah. If you could help us maybe post a link to this part of the video so they can see, listen in on our discussion here. I tagged Rick in that post, and hopefully he'll be able to jump in later and share some thoughts on that. Let me get my shared screen back up here.
I think there's also Hackberry, and I haven't, I just started downloading their files, so I haven't really had the opportunity to test it, but it looks like it's a separate finger control as well. But I don't know the mechanism yet because we just haven't gotten that far.
Well, so Rick is working on a multi-finger control device using linear actuators, and he's got really an unconventional approach, which I think has got a great deal of promise. And he may be presenting at the Bionics meeting soon in Vivek's absence. Sarah, did we get a read from Vivek about that?
He has not yet responded.
Anyway, we're trying to get Rick, who's really just a brilliant improvisational engineer, I would say, to give us a presentation about his whole process. Whether we get it or not is not clear, because as I say, he's improvisational rather than preparatory, but he's doing really, really interesting work.
Well, I'm going to have to look at this more. This is a very cool project. I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah, aesthetically, it's beautiful.
Yeah, gorgeous.
But we just downloaded the file, so we haven't started.
Yeah, I mean, they got files, they've got a tutorial, an assembly manual, and wiki. I mean, this looks very interesting. I'm going to have to check the assembly manual out and maybe try one of these. This could be a fun project.
This is a descendant of the EXI, which was one of the very first of the sort. And I remember Andreas Bastian saying these guys really nailed it on the documentation and the technology. But I have the impression that it's a difficult project, especially, I would add, if you don't read Japanese.
Well, I'm looking to see if there's I'm wondering if there's an English section. Let's see. So far, I haven't seen any. No, I think this whole thing. It's loading. Yeah, no, this whole thing is in Japanese. So we'll have to see. Maybe I wonder if their wiki has oh, I closed it.
Oh, there's the design bloom. That's the IKEA open.
Yeah, I was looking at that.
I'm eager to hear more about that. Yes.
Okay, let's see. Doku wiki. How to assemble Also in, hold on here, we got some English. They got English instructions in here. But let's see if the actual, yeah, okay. So it looks like in the wiki, they've got both languages. If I'm, well,
Yeah, it's
not
pretty
all
it's
of
pretty
it.
complex from what I looked at.
Yeah, it looks like
even
it's
the
not.
model pieces are but again, it's a really elegant design.
Really, it looks interesting. All right, I'll have to go spend some more time with that. Okay, let's move on here. Arjun Shah, challenges finding recipients. This is a common challenge that people in our community face that we've been trying to sort out, which is how do we find people that we can help, people that need our devices? We know they're out there, but they are not aware of us and we don't know who they are. So how do we connect those dots? So this person is saying they're the president of Forsyth County chapter in Atlanta, Georgia, running the chapter through a club at the high school, prepared everyone on how the whole process works, but our biggest issue is finding actual recipients. We keep looking on e-NABLE Web Central, can't find anything. Contacted some local hospitals. They aren't really interested, as it kind of takes away from their whole idea of profiting off a prosthetic. If anyone has any ideas, okay. So I guess we can kind of give the standard response here. We don't really have the answer, but we can give you some possible ways you can go about this. You can try local organizations, such as, other schools, churches and other community organizations can be a good source for people that might have limb differences in your community. And what else, John? Help me out here. I mean, we normally
there
tell
are support groups on the web, but the truth is, I think we should think about a communication when people join the web that just prepares them for the notion that currently there are more makers than recipients for these devices. That therefore we should direct them towards the Splints project, which does benefit people immediately, which is soon to be announced. And I keep coming back to the notion that I think that Rick's, I wish I could remember, lithopane technique. He's got just a lovely technique for producing a lithopane, Jesse, from a sonogram, which allows blind mothers as well as others to sort of feel the infant while it's coming. Is a really interesting project for e-NABLE people. Between splints and lithophanes, it's an opportunity to break out of the prosthetic
I think there's a
in.
lot more than that. Part of what I was hoping to see through this project that Nush is doing is not only porting our catalog over to NIH, but like I said, breaking it into categories that would include not just prosthetics, but also other types of assistive devices, because there's so many out there. There's, little gadgets to help people open doors or, do other physical tasks that they might not be able to do, or, tools for the blind, tools for the hearing impaired. There's all kinds of things that people in our community could be doing if we had, a way of presenting those files and instructions. And so far, I think the focus has just been entirely on the prosthetics, but it doesn't need to be. Yeah, Joe.
Let me use this opportunity to report that James Quilty from e-NABLE Thailand was visiting this weekend. And he showed me something that I'm actually quite excited about, which could potentially address this issue. This is the gripper hand, which he and his now scores of users in Thailand have found is the most functional, simplest device. And this, which is a TPU printed cuff, which is printed flat, but is of flexible material, as you can see, and produces a really nice, tight, conformant, and adjustable grip. Now, the interesting thing about this combination is that with a small, medium, and large of each, you could have off-the-shelf solutions for near wrist amputees. If you had,
pretty cool.
If you had one of each size.
Where did this TPU cuff come from? I've never seen that before.
It's his design.
James Quilty's?
Yes.
The
Fantastic.
Yeah.
that cost of the filament has gone down tremendously.
Yeah.
That may well be. But this raises the possibility that there are probably thousands of people, tens of thousands of people in the United States and around the world who could just order one of these from an ongoing inventory that we would create of small, mediums, and larges, or we would just make it very easy for people to ship them because these don't need customization. And he has people who walk in, choose one, and walk out with a prosthetic. And that might potentially address our underutilized maker situation.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And this is a great example with Jesse being new here, and even for Adam that maybe we haven't encountered this before with, but I think this is a great example of where we have a great idea. And I think we have all the pieces for it, right? We've got the files, obviously, for printing what John is showing us. We've got the instructions, we got everything. It's all in order to make this a successful sort of, to achieve its potential as John is presenting it. It's all about how it's presented to the community and getting the right visibility on it, making sure that people become aware of it and that this is, you know, something that would be valuable to contribute through. And that's where we've struggled is, you know, how do we share these things in a way that will get, you know, the right attention on them. And I don't know, that's something that needs somebody to kind of take the lead on, because I know John is busy with other initiatives. So, you know, it's a great idea, but now somebody's got to actually figure out how do we present that to the community and get people actually making those? Where do they get sent? How do they get collected, distributed, et cetera? You know, there's a lot of pieces to figure out there. Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if this is also a next step for Ukraine. I suspect there are a lot of people who lost hands recently.
That's
and again, because this is low customization, you can imagine if we develop a good channel for people who got splints, we might well be able to use that same channel to begin pumping these things out to that area of need.
Does that have a name, John? I know it's the gripper thumb.
Well, as a matter of fact, James has modified the gripper in several ways. There's a little slot here. There's a loop holder, so you can put a pen or a pencil in here, and it nestles very nicely into place.
Okay.
And there are a few other small changes that improve the grip. It does not yet have a name.
Okay. We're just talking about a gripper hand with a TPU cuff, as long as we know what we're talking about.
I would call it a tie gripper with a
okay.
TPU cuff.
Tie gripper hand with a TPU cuff. Okay. Could produce in small, medium, large, and be ready to use. Okay, that sounds like it has a lot of potential, given how many people we have that are anxious to print. And you know, I had this as a separate topic. Maybe we ought to just jump. Let me see if there's any other posts that we wanted to look at. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's go through the one other post, and we'll move quickly down and talk a little bit more about that, because I wanted to talk about collection and distribution of devices, because that ties into what we were just talking about. We'll have to figure out how to make that work. Let's quickly go back to our posts of note from the hub. There's one more here I wanted to look at. This is from Joshua Trubinsky, who has a cute little opossum that needs some help. It's lost half of its front leg below its elbow. And there's been some good discussion. I was glad to see that Rick Williams jumped in on this one and pointed out that he might not really tolerate a prosthetic. Most likely would nod off, he says, but he had a really interesting idea of just using something like shrink tubing, heat shrink tubing, not shrinking it on the animal's limb, but using something of a similar size, you know, pencil or whatever, to form it and just put it on the limb just to see if the animal will tolerate having something on there. and trying it out for even a couple of minutes a day. I thought that was a really interesting idea before you go forward with trying to make a device. So I don't know, anybody else have any thoughts to contribute on this? Just wanted to call it out here. No? Okay, so on we go. We have other things to discuss. Upcoming recurring events. I won't go through the whole list here, but we do have the next chapter leaders meeting coming up on Monday at noon Eastern that John will be running. And remind me, you're going to talk about there
are going to be two topics.
Okay.
The overarching topic is Wither Enable in 2023.
Okay.
They're approaching. But we'll also talk about the hopefully just launched Splints for Ukraine initiative.
Okay, so I don't know what your availability is for Monday, Jesse, but it would be great if you're available to have you for that one as well.
Is it 12 o'clock, you said?
12 Eastern. So yeah, what time zone are you in? Are you Eastern?
Yeah, I'm Eastern.
Okay. Yeah,
I am free. Yep.
Oh, that would be great. You'll find the details on the calendar in the hub. There's a Zoom link in there.
Great.
Okay, and then take a quick look at December events here. I think there's only a couple remaining. So there's the chapter leaders meeting that we just talked about on Monday. And then the following Friday, we've got, I'm going to mute you, John.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the combined education and new member meetup.
Awesome. Okay. So is there let's see, talk about how to mobilize e-NABLE education efforts with David Mazur of Adapt 3D and how to, it sounds like they'll be talking about getting those devices to people in Ukraine. Anything to add to that, Sarah?
No, so David is a high school student. He said he may be able to attend briefly for part of the meeting, and if not, he will send a video to stream in the meeting.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on here. Discussion topics. I don't think we need to spend much time on these first couple of topics. Splints for Ukraine is a very cool project. If you're not familiar with it, there's the link. Check it out. Super easy to print. They print flat. You don't need to form them. You just print them flat pack them, ship them off to this guy. He'll get them to where they're needed in Ukraine, and then they can thermoform them on the spot very easily where they're needed. They've got downloadable designs for wrist splint, which is this one here. Very simple design, like I said, very easy to print flat. They've got finger splints, they've got palm splints. So there's different ones you can choose from. You just got to print them, print yourself a label, ship them off. That's all there is to it. So it's a great way to put your printers to use without having to spend much time on it. Lumio voting process, we already covered all this. So we had a long discussion last time about making some improvements, we hope, to our voting process, and those have been written up in discussion form. Those have been posted on Lumio. So we invite everyone to review this and share their thoughts on here. Jesse, if you're not familiar with it, this Lumio platform is how we sort of make community decisions together and how we decide on allocating funds. So everyone decides together. So if somebody thinks something should happen or that we should invest money into some project, then it gets written up, it gets discussed, it gets voted on by anyone in the community. And if the vote approves it, it gets funded. It's entirely communal, community driven. So if you haven't had a chance to get in there, I'd love to have you part of that process. And in fact, I can just send you a link to check out later. I'll just put this in the chat. Lumio, there you go. All right, so that discussion thread is up and running. Do a quick review of open tickets in our help desk system. We don't have Rick here today, but he's been pretty on top of this lately, so I don't think there's going to be too much. Looks like, I think he's had a couple of appointments these last few days. They're usually at this many tickets. It looks like he's got about a half a dozen that he hasn't gotten to yet. I don't think it makes sense for me to take the time to go through these here together. I think let's hold off on these. He's going to get through these, I'm sure, later in the day, and then we'll look at them next week to see if there's anything he needs help with. So we'll move on. The chapter audit is in progress. We had a very poor response. This is the challenge that we always have. We send out our request for information from the chapters. Please take a moment to fill out this form. It's a pretty simple form asking for basic metrics. Take about, I'd say, a minute or two to fill out. But of the 252 that we sent it to, only 16 have filled out the form. So now we start to try to follow up with them one at a time and try to beg them to fill out our form. Okay, so I'm going to skip this one for now. I think we have a big discussion to have about just how do we get things done. There's this whole discussion of task management and how do we encourage more people in the community to get involved and take on initiatives. Just this morning, I was starting to play around with the idea of a, like, what if we use some kind of a Kanban approach? And I was starting to look at platforms like this one is Taiga. There's open source platforms that provide I don't have a sample up here that I can show you, but the idea was a Kanban that we could set up where you just, you know what they look like. You got cards for each of your different initiatives. You have different columns for the different, states that they're in, open, needs help, waiting for review, what needs to be deployed, whatever those different phases are. And everyone has visibility into everything that's going on and can help to kind of move things through their different phases. I didn't know if something like that might help us to do a better job of organizing and coordinating on these different initiatives. I also went in and as I was looking at that, I realized that in the hub, there was a new module that got released, which I took the liberty of installing. So in our main forum now, on the sidebar, you'll see we have tasks. Now, there's nothing in here right now, but we now have the ability to create task lists and create tasks within those lists. So I take it that task lists are intended to kind of be for an initiative. And then within that initiative, you can have as many tasks as you want. So we can kind of group these by initiatives. So I think this is worth playing with since it's integrated into the hub. Pick a topic, pick an initiative. Maybe we try using the Ukraine one. Maybe we try using the Afghanistan initiative. I don't know what makes sense to try to test this with, but I would love it if somebody could help me to play around with this, get some tasks going in here and see what the interface is like and see if this is a better way of kind of engaging with our community to help get them plugged into tasks and activities. So I'm just going to point out that it's here for now and invite anyone that wants to go in and play with it and add some things and see if it's useful. But the last topic I wanted to move on to that I did want to take some time for is this collection and distribution of e-NABLE devices, because this is relevant to what John was talking about. If we have a design that we want to invite the community to just print, in standard sizes, and we'll get them to where they're needed, we got to make sure we have a good mechanism for that, because people are going to really want to get involved with this. I'm going to start getting emails. Oh, this is great. I want to be part of this. Where can I send my devices? And we need to have a good answer for that. Right now, we have two places that we tell people to send their devices to. When people make just generic devices in a random scale that's not for somebody in particular, and they want to get them to somebody in need. There's a group called the e-NABLE Alliance out on the East Coast that was supposedly inventorying and testing and doing QA and then getting them to where they're needed. And there's another group in Atlanta, Georgia, that was supposedly kind of our e-NABLE collection point that was supposed to be collecting and inventorying and QAing and, again, distributing them to where needed. For, I don't know, several years now, we have been directing people to send devices to both of those places. And in both cases, we have been completely unable to get any reporting back whatsoever from either place. We have no idea how many devices have been received. We have no idea where they went. We have no idea if they got into the hands of people that could use them. It's just been a black hole. And in fact, that's why we started the collection point in Atlanta, is because, we weren't getting the information we needed from the other. And we were hoping that we could do a better job with this one. It just never panned out. I don't know if the people down there changed. I don't know what's happened, but it's just a black hole at this point. So we really need to figure out, how do we establish a proper collection, process where there's actually some reporting, where somebody's maintaining it could be as simple as a Google sheet that, anyone can look at, and see how many devices, what types, what sizes, what materials are they made out of, where have they been sent. We don't even need to know who they were sent to. We just need to know, 12 of them were sent to, Afghanistan, 10 of them were sent to the UK, whatever, some general ideas of what was done with them. We've just never figured out how to pull that off. So I think that needs to be figured out in order to do what John was talking about well. So with that lengthy rambling introduction, let me open it up for discussion and get your ideas.
Well, I mean, it seems like you need more collection places.
Or what?
More collection hubs. I mean, if these
Maybe, I mean, it gets complex then, because I have people reaching out to me saying, as the one that operates the help desk, we're always getting inquiries from people saying, where do we send these devices? I'm concerned that if we have a dozen different collection points, if I give them a list, well, you can send it to any one of these places, it kind of starts to get confusing. We liked the idea of having one central place that everything goes to. And I think it would work. The reporting side of it, getting data back about what's happening, is what we've never been able to pull off. So,
right. So are these collection hubs that you have currently? I mean, they're just
No, we have the impression that they are defunct, and we haven't been able to find out otherwise. So,
yeah.
So there's that. Where should we direct people? Should we direct people to send completed devices to a place? The answer is yes, if they don't just end up in a carton somewhere. And that has to do with whether there's a market for pre-made devices, which is also an unaddressed question. I'll put myself on mute now because I can't mute the dog.
Boy, your dog is in a rare state today, John. So it looks like we lost Adam. I know he's not feeling well. Maybe we continue this discussion next time, because I think he would have valuable input into this, being that this is his whole focus in his current career process and organizational, sort of improvements. So I think he'd have some valuable insights on this. So I'm happy to let this sort of percolate for a week and we can revisit it. But I think this is an important thing that we're not doing right today, that if we could get this in place, if we could figure out this mechanism, it's going to help free up a lot of other sort of, repressed potential in the community right now. We've got a lot of people that are able to help produce these devices. And by the way, if we can figure out the mechanism of this, of collecting and distributing devices, and if we combine that with what I was saying before of broadening our catalog beyond prosthetics and opening it up to include all these other kinds of assistive devices, this same mechanism could benefit that as well, right? This could be a collection point for, devices for the other types of physical impairments, for the hearing impaired, for the, sight impaired, all these different types of assistive devices. You could have inventories of all of them. And as soon as you learn of somebody that has a need for one of these things, you just have one sent off there. So there's some really interesting potential in this if we can figure out how do we get visibility into what's actually happening in that collection point, what's in the inventory and what's gone where. That's the part we haven't really done well with so far.
Jeremy, it's only a piece of the puzzle, but you do, of course, have a warehousing and shipping operation.
We do.
Could you imagine that becoming the receiving and dispatching point?
Well, it could be. It could be. I mean, all it would take is each item would have to, it'd have to have a, a SKU on it. We'd have to figure out how to, label and barcode things, but it's possible. The trick is, we couldn't just have people sending all these various things couldn't just be sent directly to our warehouse. They wouldn't know what to do with them. What would probably have to happen is they'd have to come here. We'd have to figure out what they are, package them, make sure they're labeled properly, and then send them off to the warehouse, which is still not out of the question. There would be other considerations. I mean, we do pay storage fees and then pick and pack and shipping fees and all that, but that doesn't mean it's not an option for the community if we could figure out how to, share those costs back and forth.
Just at the moment, I think about these splints, which can be pre-made without an identified recipient, but for which there's a demand. I think about this tie gripper device, for which there probably are non-United States groups that would use them in bulk. And I think about the sonograms, which are custom, but quality control issues are probably not too severe. If we really wanted to do this, I think we should focus on devices that are likely to be useful because they don't need to be precisely customized.
Right. Now we
Um,
still have the challenge then of how do you handle all the different color options? I mean, do you try to, do you do a different, identifier for each one of those and try to track them separately so that somebody can request this or that color? Or do you just consider them all based on the type of design it is and lump them all together and they get shipped a random color? There's a lot of complexities to figure out there. But it's something we could explore if you think that's worthwhile.
I don't think it's worth exploring the logistics of doing it from 3D Universe until we have a sketched out answer to the question of what devices and where would they go.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, because I don't think I'm in a position to take that on. So you would still need somebody that would, maybe a school group or something like that, that would agree to be the point of receiving devices, inspecting them, properly identifying and labeling them, and then maybe they're the ones that would forward them off to our warehouse or something like that. That is a possibility that we could explore. So I'd say let's leave it at this for now. We got to figure out the collection and distribution, whatever that is. And yes, my infrastructure might be one part of a possible option, but let's explore other options too and see what we can figure out. Okay, we're at the top of our hour, so I think you need to wrap for today. Let me just ask if anyone else has anything that you'd like to discuss before we wrap up.
Yeah, I don't want to keep everyone over, and I'd also like to have everyone there, including Adam and Rick, but I wanted to talk a little bit about my role and some ideas that I have going forward. So maybe I can put that on the agenda and we can do that closer to the top.
Let's put it right at the top of the agenda.
Okay, great.
Media coordination role and responsibilities. There we go. We'll talk about that first thing on the agenda next time. How about that?
Great.
Okay. Everyone have a great week. Jesse, so happy you were able to join us. Hope to see you again.
Absolutely.
Thanks all.
Jesse, thank you for showing. That's really, I'm excited about what you're doing, and I'm already developing fantasies about a green room.
And
Excellent.
Ward, good to see you again. Hope to see you again next time.
Yeah.
Bye all.
Bye.